You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start with one of the biggest trades in NFL history. You never see quarterbacks traded for each other. And even when you do, they're not two Pro Bowlers. The Jay Cutler-Kyle Orton trade. Kyle Orton was never a Pro Bowler. The Sam Bradford for Nick Foles trade. Sam Bradford was never a Pro Bowler. Quarterback is the most important position in sports, so when you see two former Pro Bowlers traded for each other there, that's going to go down in history as one of the biggest trades in NFL history. Of course, I'm talking about the Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff trade. I mean, this trade was so huge, I had half a mind to come up here on Saturday night and record an emergency podcast. That's how huge this is. You have a franchise icon gone. You have two firsts being traded. You have a young quarterback being traded. All the elements you want in a blockbuster trade are here. It certainly spiced up an otherwise dull week in the NFL, the week between the conference championships and the Super Bowl. Usually that's the dead time. I mean, I gotta be honest with you, I didn't even know that you could do trades then. You know I want Deshaun Watson more than anything as a Jets fan. I was under the impression that they had to wait until the start of the league year to talk to each other. I know the trade isn't official yet, but it's leaked. Matthew Stafford is going to be a Ram. Jared Goff is going to be a Lion. Let's get Deshaun Watson in green now. Don't wait a month and a half. Get it done now. But there is no question in my mind that the Detroit Lions won this trade. Think about it this way, if you're a Lions fan. You're told that Matthew Stafford, one of the greatest quarterbacks in franchise history, the holder of all the quarterback records for the Lions, is going to be traded. You're thinking, oh boy, here we go. It's another rebuild. Woe is me, we're not going to be competitive for another 5 years. I've seen this movie before. There's no hope as a Lions fan. But you take a look at what the Lions got in this trade. a third in this coming draft, the Rams first in 2022, and the Rams first in 2023 to go along with a really good NFL quarterback in Jared Goff. Is Jared Goff great? The answer is no. And I'll get into that in a minute, but he is really, really good. This is the ideal haul for the Lions. You traded a quarterback who's going to be 33 on Sunday, really only has 5 good years left, for 2 firsts, a third, and a 26-year-old 2-time Pro Bowler. Goff has actually made more Pro Bowls than Stafford. Stafford's been in the league since 2009. Goff has been in the league since 2016. They've made the playoffs the exact same number of times. 3. Did the Lions get worse at quarterback? The answer is yes. Matthew Stafford is a borderline top 10, more likely top 12 quarterback in the NFL. Jared Goff is probably in that 15-16 range. So you only got, at most, 6 notches worse at the most important position in sports. You added a 3rd rounder. That's a high pick. You don't give those away. And, excluding this coming draft, you now have 4 firsts in the next 2 drafts. If Goff fails, you can move up for the next great quarterback prospect. You want to move up for Sam Howell? You can move up for Sam Howell. I just keep going back to the Jamal Adams trade. Really the only thing my sorry football team had going for it. He wants out. Here I am saying that the best haul the Jets can get is Michael Gallup, Trayvon Diggs, and a 3rd rounder. Joe Douglas ends up trading him for 2 firsts. It's a haul better than anyone could have imagined. And I'm doing backflips over it. Lions fans should too. Don't listen to the critics. Jared Goff is a really good NFL quarterback. He's not as good as Stafford. There's no question. But you can win with him. You know how I know that? Because the Rams just won with him. They just beat the Seahawks with him. Hell, just 2 Super Bowls ago, you saw Jared Goff play against Tom Brady, and he nearly beat Tom Brady. This really isn't a true rebuild for the Lions. A true rebuild in the NFL is drafting a quarterback, building up slowly through the draft, and then going from there. The Arizona Cardinals did a true rebuild. The Chargers are doing a true rebuild. The Dolphins are doing a true rebuild. The Lions aren't. The Lions have a real chance of being competitive. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but I'll say this. Assuming you bring back Kenny Golladay and he stays healthy, Golladay and Jones aren't much worse than Woods and Kupp. You'll have DeAndre Swift going into his 2nd year. TJ Hawkinson took a massive step forward. Do you need to upgrade the defense? There is no question. The Lions' defense was the worst defense in the NFL last year in terms of points against per game. They gave up just under 32.5 points per game. But you have the draft capital necessary to improve there. You have the 7th overall pick, the 41st overall pick, the 72nd overall pick, the 89th overall pick, the 103rd overall pick, and the 137th overall pick. You go all in on defense. That's not bad. Jeff Okudah is just going to get better and better. You remember the Lions' defenses with Ndamukong Suh, Nick Fairley, Cliff Averill, and Kyle Vanden Bosch? You put Jeff Okudah and Romeo Okwara with a guy like Micah Parsons? That's scary. That's the foundation of a solid defense. I mean, all this stuff about Jared Goff just being good because of Sean McVay, it's not true. Don't you hear similarities between that argument and the only reason Tom Brady was good was because of Bill Belichick? Isn't it similar? I understand that Brady's won 6 Super Bowls. He's been to 10. He's the greatest player in NFL history. I get that. Jared Goff will never be that. He'll never get anywhere close to that. There's no question. But it's a similar argument. And that argument was just disproven. Talent wins over scheme. Jared Goff completed 67% of his passes last year. More than Matthew Stafford. Stafford only completed 64.2%. Stafford threw for 4,084 yards. 132 more than Jared Goff. I promise you that if Goff had played that final game against the Cardinals, he would have had more passing yards than Stafford. Now, Stafford threw more touchdowns. He had less interceptions. He makes less bad decisions. Matthew Stafford is a better quarterback than Jared Goff. There's no question. But there's really not a substantial drop-off. It's not like you're going from Tom Brady to Blaine Gabbert. You're going from Matthew Stafford, a guy who at best is the 10th best quarterback in the NFL, to Jared Goff, a guy who at worst is the 16th best quarterback in the NFL. So you got a little worse at the quarterback position. There's no question. But in exchange for that, you got younger. You added 3 high picks. And you didn't punt this season away. This is where the Jamal Adams example comes into play again. I've said before that Joe Douglas punted this past season away. And he did. There's no question. You know how I know that? Because he waited until after the draft to trade Jamal Adams. The Lions moved quickly. They got their new quarterback, a guy who can be their franchise quarterback. There's no question about that. Okay, he'll never be great. You know what? Every year, he's going to give you a chance to win. That's really all you can ask for. I'd have taken Jared Goff on the Jets in a minute. And it's not like the Lions were close to the playoffs anyway. The Lions finished at 5-11. They haven't made the playoffs since 2016. They haven't won a playoff game since 1991. That was when Eric Kramer was their quarterback. Get younger, get more picks, and still have an answer at quarterback? This is a coup for the Lions. This is the best trade you could possibly imagine as a Detroit Lions fan. But now on to the other side of things. Why did the Rams do this? The Rams did this because their window to win a Super Bowl is now. It makes no sense to keep kicking the can down the road. You have the best defensive player in the NFL. You have one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL. You've got a really good young running back. You have a great cornerback in Jalen Ramsey, a great pass rusher in Leonard Floyd. You've been knocking on the door for a while. Seize the moment and go for it. That's their mindset. And I'll give Sean McVay credit for this. I was critical of the idea of trading Jared Goff. Yes, massively overpaid. But what are you doing at quarterback? You can't roll with John Wolford. I was afraid that McVay was going to fall into the same trap that a guy like Chip Kelly fell into. He made this type of a trade, traded Nick Foles for Sam Bradford. Now, no one's going to be mistaking Nick Foles for Patrick Mahomes anytime soon. But Sam Bradford was exponentially worse. The reason Kelly made that trade was because he wanted to bring in a quarterback that better fit his system. He believed that his system superseded talent. Another example of that, the LaShawn McCoy for Kiko Alonso trade. It didn't work. Kelly didn't even finish the regular season as Eagles head coach after he made the Foles for Bradford trade. McVay's a smart guy. He knew that the Rams had peaked under Goff. Goff had taken a step back. He's still good, but he's not great. There was a time when it looked like Goff was going to become great. He never did. And he's on a massive contract. It left the Rams with no flexibility in terms of upgrading the rest of their roster. So you take all that into the equation. You've been able to hit on your non-first rounders in the past. There's no reason to think you can't keep doing it. And you get better at quarterback. That's why the Rams did this. I understand the logic, but I don't agree with it. This idea that this trade makes the LA Rams Super Bowl favorites next year is absurd. You're still going to have to go through Mahomes. You're still going to have to go through Allen. You're still going to have to go through Jackson. You're still going to have to go through Mayfield. You're still going to have to go through Roethlisberger. You're still going to have to go through Tannehill. Is Stafford better than some of those quarterbacks? The answer is yes. But it's not a walk in the park to win the Super Bowl. And that's just assuming they get there. They've still got to go through Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. And you're not going to beat Aaron Rodgers. You know how I know that? because Aaron Rodgers put up 32 points against you. See, that's the thing. People say that Jared Goff is the reason the Rams lost against the Packers. The Packers put up 32 points against the Rams. Jared Goff was on the sidelines when Aaron Rodgers was cooking. The Rams just lost to a better team. They lost to the MVP. There was no shame in that loss. It's not like you lost to an inferior team and you have to go, oh my God, the sky is falling. What are we going to do now? No, you lost to a better team. So your reaction in losing to that better team is to upgrade a quarterback but still be worse than the quarterback you lost to. Okay, that makes sense. Not. Do my best Borat impression. Look, the onus is on Sean McVay right now. This is a guy who has retooled the Rams from top to bottom. Brandon Cooks, gone. Todd Gurley, gone. Jared Goff, the quarterback that he signed up to coach, gone. Ran out of town. That relationship was fractured beyond repair. Look, I love Sean McVay. I think Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the NFL. He's right up there with Belichick. He's right up there with Reed. He's in that tier. But he's got to win now. You make this type of a trade, you mortgage your future for Matthew Stafford, you better win. And again, that's no formality. Like I said, Goff and Stafford have been in the playoffs the same number of seasons. 3. Matthew Stafford, in those 3 seasons, 0-3. Never made it out of the wild card round. Jared Goff, in his 3 seasons, 3-3. Made the Super Bowl a couple years ago. And I'll say this for whatever it's worth. Matthew Stafford's last game in the playoffs was in the 2016 wildcard round. The Seahawks destroyed the Lions in that game, 26-6. Stafford was dreadful. Barely threw for over 200 yards. Didn't throw a touchdown. Was sacked 3 times. The guy only had 13 first downs. Just 2 for 11 on third downs. I remember watching it. It was a dreadful performance by the Detroit Lions. The idea that now all of a sudden Sean McVay is going to whip this guy into shape, it's not true. I love McVay, and there's no question that Goff will suffer without McVay. I'm not saying Goff is going to be dreadful, but he won't be as good. And there's no question that Stafford will take a step up. Sean McVay is a million times better than Matt Patricia. In fact, Stafford hated Patricia so much that there was a report that came out that said that Stafford would okay a trade to any team in the NFL except the Patriots because they hired Patricia. I mean, if you're the Patriots or the Giants or Washington, a team that was knocking on the door of the playoffs and in the case of Washington, got in, but was held back by shoddy quarterback play, I'm stunned. None of those teams went all in on Stafford. Or Goff, for that matter. To hell with his contract. Is he overpaid? Yes. But he was overpaid with the Rams this past year, and the Rams won a playoff game. If Jared Goff or Matthew Stafford was on the Patriots, things may have played out differently in the AFC wildcard race. If Goff or Stafford was a Giant, the Giants are in the playoffs. If Goff or Stafford go to Washington, Washington may beat the Buccaneers. That's how close those teams were. But I'll say this. While Stafford will improve under McVay, the Rams aren't anywhere close to being Super Bowl favorites. They're not even the best team in the NFC now. Sean McVay really needs to win to make this trade work. That's a very tall ask. Does McVay have the smarts to do it? The answer is yes. I love Sean McVay. I really do. But it's no guarantee. All in all, the Lions easily win this trade. I have to give them an A+. As for the Rams, again, I know why they did it. Stafford's better than Goff. Their window to win is now. They're going for it. I commend them for it. But I don't think it's going to work. I have to give the Rams a B for this trade. There is one other element to this trade, though. What does this mean for Deshaun Watson? Now that we know the price for Stafford, an overpaid, very good quarterback, a third rounder, and 2 future firsts, what does that mean for Watson? How does that trade affect his price? Well, it's interesting. According to John McClain, who covers the NFL for the Houston Chronicle, he's extremely plugged into the Texans. He's one of the most well-respected reporters in the sport. He says, and I quote, this is a tweet of his, "The Rams-Lions trade will have nothing to do with a Watson trade if the Texans do it. They'll want 2 1s, 2 2s, and 2 young defensive starters at the least. The Jets only have one of those guys in Quinnen Williams. I mean, I thought about C.J. Mosley, but he's not young per se. He's going to be 29 in June, and he's only played in 2 games for the Jets. He's also on a huge contract. That's why Jets fans want to move him. I don't see him appealing to the Texans. Quinnen Williams would, but where's the second piece? If you're not including a second piece, then you can try kicking in another first. Then the trade becomes 3 firsts. Presumably, those 3 are from the foursome of picks that the Jets have in the next 2 first rounds. 2 seconds. So this coming draft in 2022, and Quinnen Williams. Look, I've been on record as saying that the Jets should do whatever it takes to get Deshaun Watson, but my God, that is a huge haul. 3 firsts, 2 2s, and Quinnen Williams for Deshaun Watson? Oh my God. Hell, if I'm going to give all that up, let me move up one spot for Trevor Lawrence. You know, it's funny, before the Stafford trade broke, there was a report from Ian Rappaport and Mike Garofalo that said that it might make sense for the Texans to move on from J.J. Watt. So I was thinking about it. Watson and Watt, what would that take? 4 firsts? You can make the argument that that trade makes sense. But once you start throwing in other things, the 2 seconds, Quinnen Williams, it gets fuzzy. I mean, I'll say this. If the Texans trade Watson, they're definitely trading Watt. But if they don't trade Watson, if they really want to try to keep him around, A, good luck, but B, they may still look to trade Watt. If you can get like a first rounder for a 32-year-old J.J. Watt, a guy who's only had 9 sacks the past 2 years, you do it if you're the Texans. I mean, I'll say this. As a Jets fan, I would do the 4 firsts from these 2 coming drafts for Watson and Watt. People seem to forget this. The Jets are going with a 4-3 defense. That means that the Jets are going to have a hole on the defensive line to fill. As it stands right now, their defensive line from left to right is John Franklin Myers, Foley Fatukasi, Quinnen Williams, and blank. I understand that J.J. Watt plays on the left side, but I have no doubt in his ability to switch sides. I think J.J. Watt could do that very easily. But I would definitely do 3 firsts for Watson. You could talk me into 4 firsts. I know that's a lot. And in a perfect world, I wouldn't do it, but this is Deshaun Watson we're talking about. And the Jets will still have the flexibility to add in free agency. They'll still have some picks to work with, especially when they trade Darnold. See, the thing that the Texans need to realize is they don't have a lot of leverage here. Do they need to trade Deshaun Watson? The answer is no, but Watson can make that situation untenable. He just saw James Harden do it to the Rockets, right across town. If he follows that lead, the Texans will be compelled to trade him. You don't want that headache if you're Nick Caserio. It makes sense for the Texans to move on quickly from him. I'm telling you. The last football story that I want to talk about concerns Nick Boyle signing a 2-year extension with the Ravens worth $13 million. And this is a good move for the Ravens. Nick Boyle is a really good blocking tight end. In fact, he's one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL. With the Ravens' run-heavy scheme, you need blockers. You need as many blockers as you can get. And if you have a tight end sealing that edge, boom, bounce it outside for a big gain. The Ravens do that a lot. They also run it inside a lot. We all know this. But when called upon to catch passes, Boyle has shown some talent there. Last year he caught 14 passes for 113 yards. That's 8 yards a catch. I mean, that's not bad. I understand that the Ravens have Mark Andrews, so Boyle isn't called upon to catch passes that much. But Boyle fills his role really well. This contract may be a bit of an overpay. It's $6.5 million a year. But the Ravens have always been loyal to their lifetime guys. Boyle's a lifetime Raven. This move makes sense. It's a little bit of an overpay, but it makes sense. It's a really good move. Alright, now I'll give you some MLB Valk talk. And there are a couple trades in the works. The first is Alex Cobb, supposedly being sent to the Angels. That was first reported by Dan Connolly and Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic. But obviously nothing's official there yet. We don't have any insiders saying that anything's done, it's gonna happen. So I really can't talk about it. I also really can't talk about the Nolan Arenado trade. As much as I'd love to, we just don't know the return. Here's what we know. Arenado's going to go to the Cardinals along with $50 million, and in exchange, the Rockies are going to get a supposedly underwhelming package of prospects. So guys like Dylan Carlson, Nolan Gorman, Matt Liberatore, I can never pronounce it. They're not going anywhere, supposedly. But again, we don't have any specifics. I don't know what the package is. I don't know if anyone else is going to the Cardinals. So I really can't talk about it. I'd love to be able to talk about it. I mean, I'll say this. If Arenado goes to the Cardinals, they're winning the Central. But I really can't go more in depth on it. But I can go in depth on the Phillies bringing back Didi Gregorius for 2 years at $28 million. And this is a good move for the Phillies. When all those shortstops signed about a week ago, there were some Phillies fans that were nervous. Oh man, we may lose out on Gregorius. Now we can't sign Simmons. We can't sign Semien. What are we going to do? Well, you don't have to worry about that. I know why Phillies fans were concerned. They were right to be concerned. But their concerns were unfounded. Look, Joe Girardi really likes Gregorius. They know each other from their days with the Yankees. Girardi really wanted to bring Gregorius in, and Gregorius rewarded that faith in him by hitting .284 with 10 homers and 40 RBIs. He played in every game for the Phillies this past year. The year before, his last with the Yankees, he had .238 with 16 homers and 61 RBIs. I mean, I like Gregorius. He had the impossible task of being the starting shortstop for the Yankees after Derek Jeter. That's like following the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. And Gregorius got off to a bad start with the Yankees. But then someone got in his ear. You're trying to be Jeter. You're not going to be Jeter. Don't try to be Jeter. Try to be the best D.D. Gregorius that you can be. And Gregorius had some big moments with the Yankees. The wild card game in 2017, the big home run, 3 straight years of hitting at least 20 home runs, at least 70 RBIs. The guy finished in the top 20 of MVP voting 2 years he was with the Yankees. He's a talented player. The Phillies really had to bring him back. It's a good job by them to get this deal done. I like it a lot. Moving on now to the Indians signing Eddie Rosario to a 1-year deal worth $8 million. And this move makes sense for the Indians, even though they're going with a rebuild. They still have to put out a competent team. And Rosario is more than competent. He's really good. It really surprised me that the Twins non-tendered him. And now they have to see him play for a division rival? That's got to leave a bad taste in your mouth if you're a Twins fan. I know you don't care about the Indians because the Indians aren't going to do anything this year. But still, Rosario has talent. The past 2 seasons, he's finished in the top 18 in MVP voting. 2019, he had 276 with 32 homers and 109 RBIs. Last year, he had 257 with 13 homers and 42 RBIs. He's a really good player that you were able to sign away from a division rival. Even though the Twins probably weren't going to bring him back, that still probably played into this a little bit. It's a good move by the Indians, and it's a fair bet to say that Rosario will be traded in advance of the trade deadline. Moving on now to the White Sox signing Carlos Rodon to a 1-year deal worth $3 million. And this is a good move by the White Sox. It makes sense. You can't trust Rodon a whole hell of a lot. He's only started 9 games the past 2 seasons. And he was dreadful in those 9 starts. But you can always use a lefty. You can always use rotation depth. The old cliche is true. You can't have too much pitching. It's possible that Rodon could crack the opening day rotation. I wouldn't bet on it, but again, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And worst comes to worst, he's rotation depth. You keep him in the bullpen as a long reliever. Rodon has talent. From 2015 to 2018, he was one of the better young pitchers in baseball. Went 26 and 29. I don't like that win-loss record, but I do like the 4.01 ERA. From a lefty, I'll take it. It's a good job by the White Sox in bringing him back. Here's hoping he can stay healthy, because when healthy, he's a really good pitcher. The last baseball story to talk about is the Cubs signing Trevor Williams to a 1-year deal worth $2.5 million. And I understand that the Cubs don't have a lot of room in terms of payroll. And they did need to flesh out their rotation. No Darvish. No Lester. But you couldn't do any better than Trevor Williams? Trevor Williams isn't that good. Last year he went 2-8 with a 6.18 ERA. He led the majors in terms of home runs given up with 15. In 2019, he went 7-9 with a 5.38 ERA. I just don't like this kid. I don't think he has good stuff. He was a pretty highly thought of prospect once upon a time in the Pirates system, but it never worked out for him. He just doesn't have good stuff. I mean, I feel sorry for you, Cubs fans. You're looking at a rotation of Kyle Hendricks, Zach Davies, Adbert Alzolay, Alec Mills, and Trevor Williams. Look, you have the offense necessary to win. I do think that guys like Rizzo and Baez and Bodie and Bryant will bounce back and have good seasons. But my God, your pitching is going to be horrendous. Tommy Hatovi is the Cubs pitching coach. He's going to have his work cut out for him. I do want to talk about a really sad death in the college basketball world. One of the most influential figures in Pennsylvania basketball history died on Friday at the age of 89. And that, of course, is John Chaney. John Chaney coached in Pennsylvania from 1963 to 2006. Now, if you've never been to Pennsylvania, you may not know this, but they have some bad neighborhoods. I'm not saying all their neighborhoods are bad. Some of them are really nice. I like going to Pennsylvania. I like going to Philadelphia. I don't like dealing with the fans, but I like seeing the sights. But even a city like Philadelphia has some bad neighborhoods. Basketball is really the only way out for some of these inner city kids. Chaney knew that. He embodied that. He was one of the toughest people you'll ever meet. But he needed to be a disciplinarian to get through to these kids. He gave a lot of kids chances who otherwise wouldn't have it. I'll fast forward to when he got to Temple. That was 1982. Before Chaney got there, the Owls were nothing. They hadn't won a tournament game since 1958. Very quickly, Chaney whipped these guys into shape, and from his second to fifth years at Temple, they won a tournament game. Now, that may not seem that impressive, but when you haven't won a tournament game since the 1950s, before John F. Kennedy was president, you can live with the one win and out. Now, the last team of that group, the 86-87 team, was Chaney's first really, really, really good team. They went 32-4, 17-1 in the A-10. They won the A-10 regular season title, the A-10 conference tournament. They were the 2 seed. They annihilated Southern but they got upset by LSU in the second round. The year after that, Temple repeated as regular season and conference champions of the A-10. They went 32-2. They finished undefeated in the conference. In fact, from February 9th to the final AP poll, they were ranked number 1. And they went on a big run all the way to the Elite Eight. But they lost to Duke 63-53. 2 years after that, 92-93, Chaney had probably his most recognizable roster. His 3 best players were Aaron McKee, who would go on to win a 6th Man of the Year in the NBA in 2000-2001. Made the NBA Finals along with Allen Iverson. Eddie Jones, who was one of the best defensive players of his era. 3-time All-Star. And Rick Brunson, who had a long career in the NBA, 1997 to 2006. Now, that team underachieved in the regular season. They went 20-13, 8-6 in the A-10, but once the lights were on bright, they showed up. They beat Missouri. They were supposed to beat Missouri. They beat Santa Clara. They were supposed to beat Santa Clara. They beat Vanderbilt. They weren't supposed to beat Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was a 3 seed that year. But Jones, McKee, Brunson, and Derek Batty all stepped up to have big games. And they weren't supposed to give Michigan much of a fight. That was a Fab 5 Michigan team. That was the Michigan team that went on to lose in the March Madness title game because Chris Webber shouldn't have called a timeout. They were supposed to get their doors blown off. You know what? They only lost by 5. They were leading by 8 at the half. The Fab 5 just balled out in the second half. They dropped 50. Remember when I said that Chaney was a really tough guy? Well, he showed it in 1994. Now, people who were really plugged into college basketball knew how tough Chaney was. Early practices, a pseudo man-to-man / zone defense, similar to ones that Jim Boeheim has ran in the past. Scheduled tough non-conference games. Like I said, if you were plugged in, you knew that Chaney was a really tough guy. But every sports fan knew how tough he was when he stormed into a John Calipari post-game press conference, started screaming at him, said some words I really can't say. I mean, the two of them nearly came to blows. And John Calipari did the right thing by not stepping up to John Chaney, because Chaney would have knocked his ass out. I mean, look, that's the one thing that really endears John Chaney to me. I don't like John Calipari. I don't respect John Calipari. I hate what he's done to college basketball. I hate what he did to the Nets. You challenge John Calipari, you're a good man in my book. If you haven't seen the clip, go see it. The famous line is, "I'll kill you. You remember that. When I see you, I'm going to kick your ass." Chaney said that to Calipari, and admittedly, I've used that line once or twice. In 98-99, Temple won the A-10 regular season championship. They went 24-11, finished 13-3 in the conference, and they made it all the way to the Elite Eight before getting blown out by Duke. 2 years after that, they won the conference championship again, made it all the way to the Elite Eight, but lost to Michigan State. Chaney didn't care what other people thought of him. This is a guy who was an old school basketball mind, wasn't afraid to tell his kids, you know what, we've got to knock these guys in the mouth. Yeah, commit hard fouls. We're not getting the calls. Well, we've got to stop him somehow. He was a defensive mastermind. His teams were always great defensively. Was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2001 and the College Basketball Hall of Fame in 2006. Incredibly well-deserved. The guy won 8 A-10 regular season titles, 6 A-10 tournament titles. He died just as I was about to post Friday's show. I had half a mind to come back up here and record something about him, but I wanted to save it until Monday. May he rest in peace. Brooklyn Nets show comes your way this evening. Oh, I'm going to tear them a new one after last night's heartbreaking loss. Heartbreaking seems like an understatement. I'll get into it later. Regular episodes of the Jacob Valk Show come your way every weekday afternoon. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk, and never forget, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.